Breaking news from around your world on this Tuesday, April 23rd, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. Islamic State claimed responsibility Tuesday for the bomb attacks in Sri Lanka that killed 321 people in what officials believe was retaliation for assaults on mosques in New Zealand. The attacks were carried out by 7 suicide bombers and targeted 3 Christian churches holding Easter services and 3 hotels. The claim was made after Sri Lanka said 2 domestic Islamist groups with suspected links to foreign militants were suspected to have been behind the attacks. About 500 people were also wounded in the bombings. 3 sources told Reuters that Sri Lankan intelligence officials had been warned hours earlier by India that attacks by Islamists were imminent. It was not clear what action, if any, was taken. Sri Lanka's president gave the country's military special broad powers to detain and arrest anyone suspected of involvement in the Easter bombings. President Maithripala Sirisena also said he would fire the leaders of the defense forces following their failure to act on the intelligence. The military has imposed a curfew and is patrolling the streets, and the government continues to block access to social media. Saudi Arabia on Tuesday beheaded 37 Saudi citizens, most of them minority Shiites, in a mass execution across the country for alleged terrorism-related crimes. It publicly pinned one of the convicted Sunni extremists' bodies and its severed head to a pole as a warning to others. The executions were likely to stoke further regional and sectarian tension between rivals Sunni-led Saudi Arabia and Shiite-led Iran. Amnesty International also confirmed the majority of those executed were Shiite men. It marked the largest number of executions in a single day in Saudi Arabia since January 2, 2016, when the kingdom executed 47 people for terrorism-related crimes in what was the largest mass execution carried out by Saudi Arabia since 1980. King Salman ratified by royal decree Tuesday's mass execution and that of 2016. The king, who has empowered his son, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, has asserted a bolder and more decisive leadership style than previous monarchs since ascending to the throne in 2015. The government defends such executions as a powerful tool for deterrence. Rescue teams in the Philippines searched for signs of life beneath the tangled debris from a collapsed 4-story commercial building Tuesday, following a 6.1 magnitude earthquake that shook the country's biggest island Monday, killing 16 people. Rescue crews sifted through mangled metal and lumps of concrete in Porac, a town 110 kilometers north of Manila. 2 people were rescued and carried out on stretchers Tuesday, adding to 7 found alive and 4 found dead overnight after higher levels caved in on a ground-floor supermarket in Porac, killing 5 people. 7 were killed elsewhere in that town. The National Disaster Agency said the Monday earthquake injured 81 people and damaged 29 buildings across Luzon Island, with 14 people still reported missing. Another stronger earthquake with a magnitude of 6.5 struck in Samar Island in the central Philippines Tuesday afternoon, but there were no immediate reports of injuries or major damage. Mexican security agents detained hundreds of Central American migrants traveling through the southern state of Chiapas toward the U.S. border. Mexican federal police and immigration agents targeted people in the back of a caravan of about 3,000 migrants. The agents detained men, women, and children who had stopped in the shade to escape extreme heat, forcing them into patrol trucks and vans. As many as 500 migrants were driven to buses and were believed headed to an immigration station for the start of deportation proceedings. About 500 other migrants evaded capture by fleeing onto private property. Asked about the detentions in a Tuesday morning news conference, Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador did not give details on what he referred to as an incident, but acknowledged that the government is not letting migrants simply go wherever they please. He denied taking a hard line, saying controls are for migrants' security because human traffickers are allegedly infiltrated among the caravans. Two brothers who say they helped Jussie Smollett stage a racist and homophobic attack against himself filed a lawsuit Tuesday against the Empire actor's attorneys, alleging that they repeatedly asserted publicly that the brothers carried out a real bigoted attack on Smollett, despite knowing that wasn't true. It names Mark Geragos and his law firm as defendants. The suit contends that even after police and prosecutors alleged that the January 29th attack was staged, and after all charges were dropped against Smollett, Geragos and his firm continued to say publicly, in widely reported statements, that the brothers Olabinjo and Abimbola Osundario led a criminally homophobic racist attack against Mr. Smollett, even though they knew that wasn't the case. The lawsuit says that the lawyers' repeated statements that Smollett told the truth all along and that the brothers were lying caused them significant emotional distress and made them feel unsafe and alienated them from the local community. Geragos didn't immediately reply to messages seeking comment about the lawsuit. It also accuses Smollett of taking advantage of the brothers' own aspirations to establish TV and movie careers by manipulating them into taking part in the alleged hoax. Voters in Egypt approved constitutional amendments allowing President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi to remain in power, possibly until 2030, a move that critics fear will cement his authoritarian rule 8 years after a pro-democracy uprising. El-Sisi led the military overthrow of an elected but divisive Islamist president amid mass protests against his rule in 2013 and has since presided over an unprecedented crackdown on dissent. Thousands of people, including many pro-democracy activists, have been arrested by authorities. Freedoms won in 2011 when mass protests ended President Hosni Mubarak's nearly three-decade rule have been rolled back. The amendments to the 2014 Constitution were approved with almost 89% voting in favor, with a turnout of a little more than 44%. The nationwide referendum took place over 3 days to maximize turnout. Egypt has some 61 million eligible voters. In his first public comments on the amendments, el-Sisi thanked the Egyptian people for voting yes. Generally, the amendments extend a president's term in office from 4 to 6 years and allow for a maximum of 2 terms. But they also include a special article specific to el-Sisi that extends his current second 4-year term to 6 years and allows him to run for another 6-year term in 2024, potentially extending his rule until 2030. The U.S. Coast Guard wants to add resources to the Arctic because dramatic changes in the physical environment of the region have allowed China and Russia to become more competitive there. The Arctic's role in geostrategic competition is growing mainly because reductions in permanent sea ice have exposed coastal borders and facilitated increased human and economic activity. In a 48-page Arctic Strategic Outlook released Monday, the Coast Guard proposed upgrading ships, aircraft, unmanned systems, and communication systems. The report said because of Russia and China's persistent challenges to the rules-based international order around the globe, there is concern of similar infringement to the continued peaceful stability of the Arctic region. The Coast Guard has only one heavy icebreaker, the Polar Star, which was commissioned in 1976, and it also serves the Antarctic. The U.S. Navy has none. Congress has approved a $655 million bill to begin building the first of up to 6 icebreakers. Russia's fleet of 40 icebreakers is the largest in the world. China's National Space Agency said on Tuesday it will soon announce rules to regulate commercial rocket manufacturing, test flights, and launches as the number of private startups in the nascent sector surged in the past year. China Space News reports the number of private firms engaged in the commercialization of China's space industry have increased to almost 100 from 30 last year, including manufacturers of rockets and satellites. Chinese space startups are racing to develop rockets capable of delivering low-cost microsatellites with commercial applications. Beijing has encouraged private investors to participate in its push in a bid to commercialize some aspects of the space industry, setting up funds and opening up government launch sites for their use. One of China's near-term tasks is to develop major satellite systems of remote sensing, communications, and navigation, according to a government white paper in December 2016. China will mark its fourth annual Space Day on Wednesday as it celebrates its achievements in aerospace and telegraphs its ambitions to explore the moon and other celestial bodies. President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump will visit Britain in early June and meet with Queen Elizabeth II, Prime Minister Theresa May, and commemorate the 75th anniversary of D-Day. The Queen invited the Trumps to travel to Britain on June 3rd. The White House said the visit will reaffirm the steadfast and special relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom. After meeting with the Queen and Prime Minister, Trump will visit Portsmouth on June 6th, the 75th anniversary of the World War II offensive. Portsmouth is one of the primary launch sites for the Allied operation to liberate Europe during World War II. Trump will then travel to France to visit the Normandy American Cemetery with French President Emmanuel Macron. The White House said Trump will also hold a bilateral meeting with Macron to reinforce continued close cooperation on our shared economic and security interests. During a working visit to Britain last July, Trump met with May and had tea with the Queen at Windsor Castle. The June trip is an official state visit to Britain. And that's your update for this Tuesday, April 23rd, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.